If you're coming to Puerto Rico, you'll probably land in San Juan Airport. You'll probably want to visit Old San Juan and one or more of Puerto Rico's excellent beaches. But what will you do when you arrive in the old city? What will you visit? What'll you miss? And how about the beaches? How do you know which ones are the best and which you should avoid altogether? And more importantly, why? That's why I wrote the Old San Juan Walking Tour and Puerto Rico Beach by Beach, the ultimate guides to Puerto Rico's most beautiful city and most wonderful beaches. But I'm not going to tell you all about them now because that's not why you're here. Just visit the links on screen and find out all about them. Today, we visit the beautiful town of Barranquitas, way up in the mountains between Ay Bonito, Coamo, Orocovis, Corozal, Naranjito, and Comerío. We've visited some of those towns already, and they all have one thing in common. The temperature is way cooler than down in San Juan. But that wasn't the only thing cool about Barranquitas. We visited the beautiful St. Anthony of Padua Parish. That's right, it's named like the one in Guayama, except that it was open. And boy, was it nice. It had that old world charm that stems from its architecture and wonderful decor. Across the street, you have the Barranquitas Bicentennial Plaza, or Plaza Bicentenaria de Barranquitas. City Hall is on the southwest side of Road 162. Continuing west on 162, you have the Luis Muñoz Rivera House Museum. And a little further down, turning left on Road 756, you'll find the Muñoz Family Mausoleum. On the outskirts of town, across the Barranquitas River, we visited the Barranquitas Lineal Walk, or Paseo Lineal de Barranquitas, as well as the Swing, or Columpio, where you can make that gorgeous selfie to send your friends back home. Finally, we attempted to visit El Cortijo Castle. All this and more in our next episode. Barranquitas is a small town located just east of the geographical center of Puerto Rico, Orocovis. It's a mountain town any way you slice it. From the minute you leave Bayamón behind, it's up and up as you drive straight through the neighboring town of Naranjito. Driving to the center of town was a challenge in itself. It was like driving through a maze. When we finally arrived, we found a parking spot behind the church in front of the Joaquín Rojas House Museum. It's one of those must-see places that appears on the internet, but of course, it was closed. Like many other places in Puerto Rico, Hurricane Maria did a number on it, and the information hasn't been updated anywhere, except here. And while we're harping on the subject of information, I'm always amazed by how little information is available about Puerto Rico's towns, both on the internet and at the towns themselves. It seems to me that public relations people have their work cut out for them, beyond sending out press releases and organizing cocktail parties. As we left the car, we walked south along Ubaldino Font Street and west along Road 162 until we reached the corner with Padre Rivera Street. At that point, we were standing in front of City Hall, and in front of us was one of the most beautiful squares in all of Puerto Rico. It carries two names, the Monsignor Miguel A. Mendoza Square and the Barranquitas Bicentennial Plaza, because it was remodeled in 2003 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Barranquitas. Like the parish in front of it, this square has a European feel that you don't find in many other plazas on the island. Maybe it has to do with the fact that all the statues were imported from Italy. Maybe it's the marvelous ironwork that adorns the railings, benches, light poles, and the wonderful gazebo in the center. Maybe it's the fountains at the corners that actually work. Or maybe it's all put together. Whatever it is, the Barranquitas Bicentennial Plaza is simply stunning. After walking around the Barranquitas Bicentennial Plaza, we finally entered the St. Anthony of Padua Parish. I'm not an architect, so I'm not even gonna try to tell you what kind of a building it is. And since I tried to get information at City Hall, at the tourist office, and on the internet, and none was available, I'll simply tell you that it has one bell tower on the northwest side, and it looks old style. Simplistic? Unsophisticated? Yeah, but that's about the sum of my architectural knowledge. However, looking old and being old are two different things. This temple has been destroyed 3 times throughout its history. Its first version was built between 1804 and 1809, but was destroyed in 1825 by Hurricane Santa Ana. The second and third temples were destroyed in 1876 and 1928 by Hurricanes San Felipe and San Felipe II, respectively. So, the church that you see today was actually inaugurated in 1933 and renovated in 1980. And by the look of things, they did a better job because it withstood Maria, which was the meanest hurricane in Puerto Rican history. St. Anthony of Padua Parish isn't lavish at all, but it has that old world charm that's both relaxing and inviting. My favorite thing about it is that it's bright, thanks to the wonderful stained glass windows that grace every wall. This is important because some temples can seem musty, dark, and uninviting. The woodwork on the temple's vaulted ceilings is probably one of the things that most leads you to believe that the building is centuries old. The altar is austere and simple, and the floors are just perfect. So far, our visit to Barranquitas had started on the right foot. From St. Anthony of Padua Parish, we walked over to the new Tourism Department office located on the northwest corner of the square. We usually visit those offices to obtain printed information about each town that we later used to write our script. The lady was nice, but she said that she had no information available. She did, however, promise to email it to us as soon as she got it. So I left her my business card, and I'm still waiting for the info. As we left the tourism office, we walked south on Padre Rivera Street and turned west on Road 162 towards the Luis Muñoz Rivera House Museum. There's a bust of Muñoz Rivera at that corner in case you're interested. Luis Muñoz Rivera was born in Barranquitas on July 17, 1859. He was a major figure in the struggle for Puerto Rico's political autonomy under Spanish rule. In 1909, he became Puerto Rico's second resident commissioner after Federico de Geto, who we covered in our Ay Bonito video. His son, Luis Muñoz Marin, became the first Puerto Rican to be democratically elected governor of Puerto Rico in 1948. The House Museum is filled with all sorts of information and memorabilia about Muñoz Rivera and his family, but sadly, it was closed. There was a sign on the door stating that museum hours were Tuesdays through Sundays from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. But there we were at 9:54 and the place was closed. Our first reaction was to walk back to the tourism office and ask for the museum attendant. But the lady at the tourism office had no idea who was responsible or where he or she was. So back we went down Padre Rivera Street, turned right on Road 162, passed in front of the Luis Muñoz Rivera House Museum, and turned left on Road 756. A few houses down, we arrived at the Muñoz Rivera family mausoleum, where you find the tombs of Muñoz Rivera, his wife Amalia Marín Castilla, his son Luis Muñoz Marín, and his daughter-in-law Inés María Mendoza. Sadly, that too was closed. One totally unrelated thing about Barranquitas that caught our eye was the amount of beautiful ironwork that you see everywhere. And I'm not talking about the Bicentennial Plaza alone. I'm talking about houses along town streets. As we returned to our car, we noticed a small museum on the corner of Road 156 and Ubaldino Font Street. Actually, it's on the northeast corner of the St. Anthony of Padua Parish building. There's a small church store at the corner, and inside there's a small movie house museum. So what's the connection? Well, it happens that at one time in history, there was a movie house right there at the corner. And the museum still has the original projectors, several rows of its original seats, and even a couple dozen original movie posters from the 20s, 30s, and 40s that you won't find anywhere else. So if this is the kind of thing that floats your boat, by all means, drop by. From there, we drove across the Barranquitas River to the Barranquitas Linear Walk, or Paseo Lineal de Barranquitas. Like everything else, I couldn't find official information about its length, but to me, it's about a mile long. The only figure that I did find stated that the walk was 466 meters long, but that would be 0.29 miles, and I know for a fact that it's much longer. In any case, the walk offers a commanding view of the town of Barranquitas. There's also one of those chairs that seem to be popping up like mushrooms where you can shoot that perfect selfie and send it off to friends and family. There was one place left that we wanted to visit. It was an old hacienda with a castle-like building called El Cortijo that sits on the outskirts of town on Road 162. We actually drove all the way there only to find that it was closed. So there you have it. Barranquitas is a beautiful town that could be so much more if they only got their tourism act together. They have a beautiful Catholic church, a stunning main square, beautiful countryside, and they're home to two of Puerto Rico's most important historical figures. Most towns don't have half of that. And before I forget, Barranquitas is also home to the San Cristóbal Canyon, which is the deepest in the Caribbean and sits between Barranquitas and Ay Bonito. However, I already covered that in the Ay Bonito video, so you'll have to watch that one if you're interested. Oh, and did I mention that the town is sparkling clean? That's right! I didn't see a single piece of litter anywhere, or graffiti on the walls for that matter. Kudos for that. I love it. So I guess it's time for me to shut up. See you next time.